And welcome to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. Build Your Best Business focuses on the entrepreneurial journey. What does it take to successfully start, manage, grow, and eventually exit a business? Coming to you live from Dig South, one of my favorite places to attend every year. It feels like a family reunion.
It's kind of like Christmas, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's a family reunion, but you're not asking somebody you don't know to move their car.
There's
so
no
you can leave
no
later.
awkward conversations.
I'm not sure about that.
Are you married yet?
Do you have kids? Yeah, all that kind of stuff. So the voice you hear in the background is Nathan Adamson. He is the co-founder and CMO of RadTab.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, RadTab.
Got it all right.
That's it, 100%.
Which means I probably won't get it right the rest of the time. But
hey, you get it right once, that's all that matters, right?
All right. So for those of you that are, listening that are not familiar with RadTab, what is RadTab?
Yeah, sure. So RadTab at really its kind of core is a iOS native app. We integrate with bars, restaurants, nightclubs, and we kind of expedite the idea of where you can open and close a bar tab on your phone. So if you have the app on your phone, we use geolocation. You have a stored credit or debit card, you can store up to 5. If you're within the venue, within 100 meters of the venue, you can then start a tab. We authorize the card, and then that tab is now open at the bar under your last name, first name, just like if you gave your card to a bartender. From there, you order verbally with the bartender or server. Items go on your tab, and you can tip and close out from the app, or you can just leave. Once you walk out of the venue, it automatically tips. So there's a few benefits why that's great, right? For obviously the bartenders that are really busy between the hours of 11 p.m., like 1:30 a.m. There's people that are just waiting to leave, right? Those customers are done. They don't want to get any more drinks. They're done doing fireball shots.
It's often the most awkward part.
Yeah.
Like, can I get the bill? Like, where is it?
Eric, you're right. The worst part of the going out experience is getting the check and closing your bar tab at the end of the night.
Right.
There's nobody that enjoys that, but on the other side, no bartender enjoys doing that either. That's the worst part of his experience.
Right.
Is being the guy that has to deal with drunk Susie and her friends that are, trying to go to the next bar, and he's got it. She can't find her card or something.
Right.
There's so many reasons why, and I think everybody's probably been there. Like, they can think of a situation right now in their heads, go, yeah, I kind of wish I had this last Saturday when I was at Applebee's trying to leave, and that's kind of where the idea came from.
Well, this is going to sound like maybe the most upper class thing I've ever said, right? So we belong to a country club because we lived in a country club neighborhood, right? And what I used to love about that is we could go to the restaurant, and we had to, because if not, we got charged, right?
Right.
You walked in, you signed at the beginning, and you never saw a bill.
Right.
And I'm certain we spent way more money than we should have, because we'd be like, oh yeah, let's get dessert, right? Like we weren't even considering it.
People don't spend, they spend more if they don't see the total, right?
Yeah.
You
like
think you're spending 25 and it's 225.
Right.
But with RadTab, you actually know exactly how much each item is. It has the sales tax already on there with the subtotal. And when you close out, you know exactly how much you're paying. And it's kind of cool, because I think we've all been there with the bar tab. You think your 5 shots of Fireball probably cost only $30. You get the tab at $78. And you're like, wait a minute, what happened here? Because nobody, at 10 o'clock at night, when you've already had a few drinks at the other bar, nobody is going to say, hey, let me see your menu real quick.
Right,
they kind of know what they want, right?
And if you've inherited my recent Manhattan obsession, it's like, those can be an expensive drink.
And there's that saying, if you have to ask the price, you can't afford it.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So this idea, did it come up from just personal experience, or?
Well, it's interesting. So really the idea came from...
I'm not asking if you're an alcoholic.
No. But did have my fair good time at USC at 5 points.
All right.
But the idea originated from my business partner, who now passed away, and we'll get into that later. But Sean Lally had this idea when he was at CFC.
Okay.
And when he graduated CFC, right before he graduated, he was in a pretty bad car accident. And, for him, the idea of closing his bar tab was not really just, hey, I can close it and go to the next bar quickly. It was just actually the idea of him being able to close it at all.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting thinking from that standpoint. Always, had a really good technical mindset and just kind of knew like this was possible. And if we looked at bars, they really have not changed their business. It's been about the same way you operate a bar 20 years ago.
Right.
I mean, other than maybe a few changes as far as the POS machines themselves, a bar manager in the 80s could run a bar today. There's not much differences at all.
Right.
And really, since the beginning of time, there's always been that idea where you always have to do some type of hand-to-hand exchange of currency. You always have to wait for the bartender to close you out. It may have been trading cows or chickens or, wooden coins.
Right.
But that's been, that's kind of been our story since the very beginning of time, is like the way bars operate. And, we're thinking like, it's at the time, 2016, there's something that we could do
Right.
to kind of bring this up, right?
Well, and then more and more credit cards are not even requiring signature any
Right.
longer. It's just
Ex-
so many things. And when I sign, I don't ever sign anything that looks
Yeah.
legible anyway.
And you're exactly right. And most of these receipts, they're wet from sitting on the bar. It looks like an X, but it could be a D. You have no idea.
Right.
And how legit is that? How important is that to the credit card company? Yeah, it looks great to have it, but it doesn't really do anything. So really the idea of doing what's called a card not present transaction, where the way that we save the card, we tokenize it in the credit card vault, we ask for the credit card verification number, the billing zip code, those things, and the fact that you have to have your device within the venue that's registered to you, right? Your device ID, your IP address. That's a lot more important than just a signature.
See, I want this to happen everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to go through. I don't ever want to go. I just want to go to the grocery store. I want to go to the restaurant. I want to go to Home Depot. I want to walk out. I don't want to deal with that part of it at all.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I loved when Uber came on the scene, because I would do black cars in other cities, and I never knew if the tip was included or not, and it was always annoying. And so that cleaned that whole system.
And you know what
up.
Uber did really well? They took away. If you think like taxis, even if you and me took a taxi later tonight. The worst part of the taxi is at the very end, right? When you got to kind of pay, you got to get out. It's the same thing with closing a bar tab, and what Uber did really well.
Credit card system never works.
Yeah, and you're not sure if there's like a skimmer on it. The thing looks like something from 1970. It's got like 3 blinking red lights.
Right.
But yeah, it's an awkward part of the experience. And what Uber did so well, it wasn't the idea that you could call a ride so easily, but the fact that if you didn't even have a wallet on you, as long as you had your phone, you could take care of that transaction and get to point A to B. And I always hated the idea of comparing Uber and RadTab, right? The same. Because there's a lot of companies that do that, right? Like we're the Uber of babysitting, we're the Uber of dog walking. But we are very similar in the fact that it's all about
it's
the
seamless
convenience.
financial transaction.
Yeah,
and that was my favorite part of it. I didn't like, because you do a black car and you don't know if it's. I would have somebody who would arrange it for me, and then we get to the end and they're like, "I need your card." I'm like, "Well, you should already have my card."
Yeah.
Right? Like you never knew. They might take your card. You think you're going to get it charged again. I don't.
And good luck finding on your credit card statement what it was. Right. It's like Gene Joe's van or something.
Right. So how did you get involved then with the business?
Yeah. So I originally came down to Charleston 3 years ago, and I came down actually for the medical field.
Okay.
My goal was to be at MUSC, and that was like really my love. My background is in biology. And it's kind of interesting. I actually volunteered at Dig South 3 years ago.
Okay, all right.
3 years ago.
Okay.
And from that, in the Harbor Entrepreneur Center, I love the idea of the freedom of being an entrepreneur. And I don't consider myself an entrepreneur at all, because I think that's like kind of like a lifestyle, and it sounds more glamorous than it really honestly is.
Yeah, the current rock stars.
Yeah, I mean, I feel more like a janitor, a cook, the sheriff, the lawyer, right? A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So I went to 1 Million Cups, the pitching events.
Yeah.
And Sean pitched this idea, and I loved it. And because, I was social chair for my fraternity at USC, and I always had to deal with like our check, right? Mm-hmm. You got to give it. So here's our bar tab check for the night.
Saw that last night at Five Loaves. There was a sorority there, and there were 7 or 8 people, and they were trying to figure out how to split the bill up.
And of course, you're not always sober trying to do that transaction. And the bartenders are putting things on there that never were even ordered, and it never goes as planned ever. And it's like there always had to be an easier way. And I know I can actually think back to times where I've waited literally 15 minutes, on a check, right? Where you almost just get so frustrated, you just walk out and leave.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know this, but they do the whole thing. If you leave your card or leave a tab open, it's 20% gratuity added on top. That's actually not even legal. So we're actually solving a whole nother problem with that, where if you do leave, it adds the tip automatically. But I think that it was just kind of like a problem I could see definitely that needed to be solved.
So you go to 1 Million Cups. You see this being pitched.
I see Sean.
And you call your parents and say, "I'm not going to go to medical school."
No, that's not really how it worked. Well, I saw Sean. I saw him pitch.
Yeah.
And I just went up to him and I said, "Hey, I love your idea." And I obviously knew he couldn't pay me or anything. And I was just like, "Hey, let me just help out any way I can." I didn't have really a technical background as far as coding or knowing Node.js or doing hybrid ionic apps or anything like that at the time. But I knew I could add some type of value, right? Because I understood the product and I understood the market that we needed to hit.
Right.
And sometimes that's just as important, right? So we started by contacting a bunch of the POS companies and seeing how we could integrate with them. And we found this really great company called Omnivore that we still use today, that all the big companies like Even Resi, reservation services, they do that. So that was a really great starting point. And then off that, we just kind of had to get some people to trust us and say, hey, we kind of gave a battle plan. We're going to build this product. This is what it's going to look like. Luckily, Sean already had some really cool type of branding already in place, thanks to Fuzzco, a local studio down here.
Okay.
Yeah, Fuzzco's great.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how much it would cost if we had to get that done today.
Right.
Because this is like, I think when he got that branding done, it was like 2013.
Yes.
So imagine, they're huge now. So with that, we just kind of just had to really kind of start from scratch. I mean, there's a lot of companies that do bar tabs, right? I mean, the original one was Tabbed Out, and they started back in like 2010, based out of Austin. And there's probably about 12 or 13 companies that actually tried to get into this space. So right from the get-go, we knew we had to be different.
Yeah.
We just knew it. And so we didn't know if that was going to be maybe features type different, technology type different, or we're going to go after different type of venues, like maybe we just go after lounges or just after like, small dining restaurants. But what we found is really the best way to go about it was really just kind of how the tab closes out, right? Where we're not using a third-party processor. It's being closed out on the POS system through the EDC, which stands for electronic draft capture. And
I was going to ask.
Yeah, like anybody cares. But
right.
That was really important because it was all about the convenience to the bar owner. The idea that we had to give him a check 2 days later with the amount, he's going to say that's not right. We knew we had to make it as seamless and easy to use as possible. No hardware, no change of payment gateway, no training for staff needed. We knew if we were going to scale a company, it had to be something that we could. Yeah, it had to be something you could install into 20 venues in one day, and they're not going to be calling you at 2 a.m. saying, "Hey, we can't get this tab to closed out." Right? That'd be a living nightmare to run a business like that.
Okay, so we're going to do a commercial break, and when we get back, I want to talk a little bit about how you got that first point of sale company to.
Pretty much had to beg.
Pay attention to you guys and, what those first systems look like.
We had to be pretty aggressive.
And so then some of the things also that you're learning along the way, like, unexpected things within the business, kind of growing it, what you guys have done to get to that next level. And when you decided that, I know that you guys saw the pitch, but did you decide immediately to go into this, or is this something that you were still doing medical? Don't answer my question now. So we're going to talk a little bit about that when we get back.
Cool.
So you're listening to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw, coming to you from Dig South in Charleston. We are talking today with Nathan Adamson. He is the CMO and co-founder of RadTab. We'll be back in just a moment.
Cool.
So tell me how you came up with the name Laddering Works.
So it's tied into several things. It has several meanings. So Laddering is the name of the book that I had that came out in 2013, and I'm working on 2 more books in that series. So the first book was about how to find customers and how to create marketing messages. I'm working on one around building teams and then also being a good leader. So how do you run your business effectively, those kind of things.
Nice.
In that book, I teach you that you need to understand why. And we need to understand why very deeply. So you're asking that question multiple times to understand what your customer wants and how they're buying from you. So with laddering, we're helping you scale up. So we're laddering your company up to the next level by deeply understanding what's not working in the company. So what operational structures are missing? What are you not doing on the marketing side? And so we apply the techniques that I talk about in that book, and we ladder your company up. And the interesting thing about laddering is you think about moving up. Well, we actually have to go deep. We have to look up underneath the covers. We have to understand why the structure is not there before we can take you up to that next level. So it plays off a couple of ways, but it's based on that technique. And we're back and listening to Build Your Best Business. Build Your Best Business focuses on the entrepreneurial journey, and I'm talking today about RadTab, which is a new way to close your bar tab.
Open and close your bar tab, right?
And I think
it
should open and close everything.
Yeah, right.
So I'm
imagine
talking
using that at Harris Teeter, right? Just go in, not have to wait in that grocery line.
Yeah.
I think Amazon's already, they're already kind of working
talking
on
about that. Yeah, there's some kind of store like that.
It's literally, you can pick something up and you can even try to put it in your coat pocket or put it in your pants. and you still will get charged for it by the time you walk out. So it's using, I mean, they have like a ton of cameras it's using.
Yeah,
but
they're just scanning like co-location.
It's kind of crazy.
So Nathan Adamson.
Yes.
He's the CMO and co-founder. And so talking a little bit about the journey. So getting that first point of sale because you decided that integration was really important. How did you get them to agree? Because you're 2 or 3 guys kind of.
It's actually a lot harder than I wish it was. So really before I started working with RadTab and Sean pretty much full time, I was working with a company called Holtzclaw. They were based out of Seattle. They actually did an event at a bar down here in Charleston, and I wanted just to connect with these guys more as a partnership with RadTab because I saw they were in 30 cities, and Charleston was a new market for them, and they wanted to expand into Columbia. So I contacted one of their co-founders, this guy named William, and I still talk to him today. And I was like, hey, I'd love to help out any way I can. And they were a growing company, and they just got some capital. And they pretty much, like by the end of our conversation, I was on their Slack team, and I was helping call bars for Boise, Idaho, of all,
wow.
Yeah, seriously, that was like Boise, Idaho has like a massive amount of bars.
Yeah.
Midwest, that's all. I mean, it's really all they do out there is just.
We could have a long conversation about why that is.
But exactly. So I just started helping out, and I built like this amazing network of bars for cities you can think of, like from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to Cincinnati, Ohio, Baltimore, Maryland.
So by helping out another company, you ended up creating the network.
Yeah, and I literally with Hotspot, I was just kind of volunteering because I wanted to be part of a startup, and I wanted to be able to provide value to RadTab, and working in it with a nightlife app was a great way to do it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of an interesting model. It was an app on Android and iOS. You actually would purchase tickets for like a kind of a happy hour from like 6 to 8 or 7 to 9. And with that ticket, it was like $15. You got in and you got 3 free drinks. And the idea was that they brought all these customers in on a time when the bars are normally not busy. No bar's busy on a Thursday from 6 to 8.
Right.
And after happy hour, how that is. So it was great, and I got to learn a lot about the bar business. Stuff I didn't know. I understood like the customer side of it. I think a lot of us do, but the actual workings behind the bar and what that means, like for a GM and a bar owner, and that was really great. But for us to get our very first point of sale system, I had to go all the way back to Columbia, and I got this guy, Matt Sheminsky. Thank you, Matt. He was our very first person that would give us a chance. Because the idea of 2 guys walking into a restaurant, and it's like, hey, we want to put this, even though it takes literally 10 minutes to do, we want to put this small piece of software in your back of house so we can send credit cards to it.
Exactly. Like right where your payment is.
Well, you probably have a better chance of taking his wife out on a date, right? I mean, there's just no...
Well, and some of their highest margin product, too. I mean, this is where they can make some good bit of money.
This is in like the, if we were facetious or something, we could totally have like messed up his entire business and like could have put a bug on there or something. And I don't blame us. We got a lot of no's in the beginning, right? And it's also because we got a lot of no's because when they asked us how many venues we were in, 2 years ago we had to say we were in 0. We had to be honest. I kind of wish I could lie and say, oh, we're actually in 900 venues, but none of them are in the state of South Carolina. I wish but we couldn't do that. So we had to start somewhere. And there was a bar, and it's still there now. It changed names. It went from City Bar to Vista Union. He's still the owner. And it was a Dinaware POS system, and we were able to integrate with it. And we got our very first transaction, like literally the day before Halloween in 2016.
Oh, wow.
And I'll never forget that. And what was so funny, we had to drive up 2 or 3 times just to get it to work our first time. So me and Sean, 2-hour drive to Columbia, 2 hours back in the same night. We did that like 3 days in a row. I mean, we felt like truckers, but we finally got it on there, and it was such a great. That was so great because there's like an aha moment, and the idea really was like it just gave us a lot of faith and a lot of confidence to go, wow, this really does work.
Right.
And I even still have the original Snapchat of us actually doing the transaction. I saved all of the stuff, because that's going part of this rad story we're getting ready to do for our website, which is really cool. But that was great, and we could finally tell people, yeah, it works. We got a bar in Columbia that uses it, and we could say that confidently.
So that gave you your momentum.
Huge momentum.
Yeah, and so from there, growing the business. So is it a labor intensive, or you just have to get more customers? Like, how does that look? From a
there's really
perspective?
there's really a process with it, right? You could have 20,000 users. That's great, but if you only have 2 venues they can use it at, that's not really helping you out that much.
I hadn't thought about that. You've got kind of that double or triple leg.
Yeah, we're really a B2B and a B2C.
Yeah.
So the most important thing we've always focused on first is actually getting a large number of venues. And that's also important to say is you can't have one venue in Texas, one in Detroit, and then one in Charleston. That's 3 venues, that's nice, but it has to be in a localized area. So if you really look like where we're at in Charleston, we're kind of like right between like Calhoun and like Spring on King. So like all those places that you can walk to.
Yeah.
And give them the idea of that bar hopping experience. That's important.
Bar crawl,
Bar crawl, right? Because usually people that go out on a Friday and Saturday, our customers, our demographic, they don't go to just one place the entire night. They're going to go to 3 or 4 places. So the idea is they're going to have 3 or 4 taps.
Right.
So that's also really important. So yeah, we focused purely on venues first, and then from there, focusing on the actual customers and getting them. And it's not about just getting someone to download the app. It's great. We have a lot of people that have the app on their phone, but if they don't use it, that doesn't do us any good.
Right.
So that's also been important. It's just customer retention, and we're doing some really cool things with cloud messaging now and stuff like that to kind of ping people on Thursday night. If there's like a live band playing, boom, they get a notification. Not spam stuff.
See, and that's something that we would like to know. We live in the Roswell area, and there's a lot of restaurants that bring in live entertainment, and you have no idea when it starts.
Yeah.
You don't know necessarily who's playing, and so we're sort of hit and miss, and that's one of the reasons we'll choose a restaurant where you want to sit outside. We want to have, somebody.
And people that go to these bars, they have like their favorite bars. They have like their regular customers, and it's great to know what they look for. But it's also great to know what people that come into Charleston, what are they looking for a night out? And that sometimes looks different, right? You have a lot of bachelor parties and things like that. So it's been able to find a need that kind of fills everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of funny you say that because somebody was telling me the other day, you go, let's say that you're in town and you go to Austin, Texas, which has a great, like 6th Street, great bar scene.
Right.
Nobody follows all 50 of those bars on Twitter to know what's happening.
Well, curated content. Like,
Yeah.
there's no such thing. We don't want a stream of everything. We want curation.
Yeah, you
So
almost have to be
curated.
like a bar expert to know like where to go and like read like 10 articles on the plane. So that's, we're not helping really with any type of the advertising marketing with bars yet. We're really just kind of focusing on what we do well. But one of the really cool things we're really doing that's going to really help span our business is we're working with this ID scanning company out of Minnesota. So some really interesting stuff. If you think about it, Las Vegas, right? You have everybody from all over the world comes into Las Vegas, all 50 states and probably 30 plus countries. Nobody is an expert on what every driver's license looks like.
Right.
Do you know what a Wyoming driver's license looks like from 2009?
Right.
No, nobody does.
Right.
So what they do is they're using like character recognition and stuff on the ID. It's the same thing that we use. So for our app, we actually scan the front and back of the credit card. That's how it's entered into the phone. But they're doing the same thing with IDs, and they're storing all of that. But what's really interesting is like, let's say you and me get kicked out of the nightclub, and we go to another nightclub that uses the scanners, it's going to say Eric and Nate were blacklisted for starting a fight. But obviously with our sales data that we're getting off the POS, not only can I see RadTab data, but I also can see just basic credit card information, not like numbers or anything
could be
like
some
that.
interesting patterns around like where people go first or second.
Yeah. Like I can see first and last name, and I can see the items that they ordered, total.
Yeah.
That's really it. I can't see like any like important information. But with that, we actually can pair up that sales data with that person, because most people's credit cards and their driver's license, well, they probably have the same first and last name, right? And if we can see that the bar tab and the ID was scanned on the same night, we can kind of team those together. So if you and me go and ball out at Club Marquee in Las Vegas, spend 18 grand, and then we go down to Miami, even though nobody in Miami knows this, the second we get our ID scan, they're going to go, damn, Eric is a baller.
Right.
And they're going to treat you differently than they would if we were just standing, just walked in and we had no data on us. So that's stuff that's like in the works. And, really with RadTab right now, we're really thinking about a way to actually scale, to scale it.
Right.
And, we're getting really great traction. We've had a lot of good feedback from bars, and everyone's just really kind of excited, which is great.
Yeah.
But now we're getting ready for those growing pains, right? We're adding on to the team, bringing in more people that, you have to trust. And I think that's actually a scary move for some people, because change is good, but, you always hear these like kind of horror stories of growing too quickly, right?
Yeah, you don't grow, and I wrote about that today. It's not about growing and failing, it's about not the fear of failure, it's often the fear of success. Because as you are successful, service levels go down, things happen, and you can't catch them unless you've done a good job of scaling it. So talk to me, because I want to make sure we get this story in. So your co-founder died last year.
Yeah. So it's a really tragic story, and the timing of it was terrible because literally, Sean, we got this deal with NCR, big POS company.
Right.
If you go to a bar tonight, it's probably going to be an Aloha POS.
Right.
And so
They
8
just
days.
built a big building in downtown Atlanta. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Duluth, Georgia is right outside is where they're from. I've been down there a few times, but yeah, my business partner Sean, he passed away 8 days before our actual launch party, which was in October.
Wow.
And it's kind of crazy. I was helping another startup down here called Punch List at the time, just trying to make some money just to keep us going until we could afford to pay each other.
Right.
And we were getting ready to install in a venue called Republic that's down here in Charleston. And I go over to his house and I find him there.
Wow.
And talk about definitely the number one most shocked moment of my life.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody is prepared to not only find a business partner, but a really close friend like that. The amount of emotions and thoughts that go in your head are absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Well, building a business is a lot like a marriage and having a kid.
It is.
And
No, it
doesn't
is.
matter. And every company I work with is typically two people.
And and what's so crazy about all that is you feel like your business partner, I was talking to him every single day.
Right.
There was not a day in the last 2.5 years that went by that we did not at least talk once.
Yeah.
May not have been about RadTab, but we talked about, we always were talking.
Yeah.
And you think with that kind of a relationship with somebody that you know everything about them, and that's just not true. And obviously he was fighting some demons and stuff, and it was just absolutely terrible, finding him like that. But I had to come to a realization. I could either sit in the corner and feel sorry for myself, and just do something else, or I could let his legacy live on.
So how did you backfill the part of the business that he was responsible for? Because often I see companies where one person's really good at like sales and the other's operations, or there's some kind of yin and yang. Were you guys yin yang?
What was so great is I always had the marketing behind the things, and Sean was by far the technical genius behind everything. And it was so great because we always were talking, and he was sharing a lot of stuff with me, and I was sharing a lot of stuff with him. So if you remember in the beginning when I met Sean, I didn't really have any much of a technical background.
Right.
Now I can talk Node.js, I can talk Swift coding, I know
So you
all about
cross-train
Amazon
each
Web
other.
Credits. Oh yeah. I pretty much had to be, I was getting there, and then overnight I had to become an expert, right? But his dad has been fantastic for us. I talk to his dad every week. I talked to him early today. His dad has became pretty much like the angel on my shoulders, just guiding me through this entire process, which is fantastic for me because keeping his family involved was one of the most important things. I wanted them to be respectful and make sure, this was his baby at the beginning, and to make sure that it was okay for me to continue it, down our dream and pathway. And, his dad gave me the green light. He goes, let's run with it. And so I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. Hold on tight. It's going to be a wild ride.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to
thank you for
talk
having
with me. So, and right now, are you just deployed in Charleston? Or are you other
We're in
areas?
Charleston and in Columbia.
Okay.
Yep.
You need
And we're
to
going to
go-
be in Dallas and San Diego and
Yeah, hit
Minneapolis.
Atlanta too.
Oh, I'd love to hit Atlanta.
Yeah.
I know.
Down off the Silver Comet Trail, we've got a
Well,
not the Silver, it's the
The Buckhead area is a
Oh,
huge. Yeah, everybody knows
absolutely.
that, right?
Yeah. All right, so you've been listening to Build Your Best Business. We're coming to you from Dig South in Charleston, South Carolina. Talking today with Nathan Adamson.
Adamson.
Did it
Yeah.
only wrong. Is it Nate or Nathan?
Well,
called yourself
my
Nate.
official name is Nathan, but
okay.
man, it goes from Nathan, Nate Dogg, Nathaniel, Nasty Nate. I've heard it all. So as long as it's not inappropriate, I think it's going to be okay.
So anyway, thanks for joining us. Until next time, what are you going to do to build your best business?